just bracing the beam when a man's voice broke the stillness. "Ma'am, careful there!" She turned sharply. A rider had come through the trees, a tall man on a bay horse, his hat shadowing gray eyes that missed nothing. He swung down and strode toward her. Before she could object, he caught the other end of the beam just as it slipped, saving it, and her, from crashing down. For a moment they both stood, breathing hard in the cold air. "I had it," Eliza said quickly, brushing dirt from her skirts, pride tightening her jaw. "Look that way," he answered mildly, touching the brim of his hat. "Clayton Hart. My family runs the Double H Ranch south of here." "Eliza Sullivan," she replied, straightening. "And this is my land, Mr. Hart. Bought and paid for." His eyes flicked over the scene, the half-set logs, the small tent, the rough campfire. "You're building alone?" "I am. Winter's close. You'll want a roof before snow hits." "I know what I'm doing." He studied her a moment longer. There was no mockery in his look, only quiet concern. "Then I'll wish you luck," he said, starting back to his horse. But before he mounted, he added, "There's a spring northwest of here. Never freezes, even in the droughts. The creek you're using dries up by December. You'll need that water if you mean to stay." Eliza frowned, suspicious of advice freely given. "And why tell me this?" Quote, "Because I've seen what happens to folks who don't know this land," he said simply. "I wouldn't wish that on anyone." The wind picked up, rattling the pines. Clouds gathered above the peaks. "Storm coming," Clayton warned. "You got shelter enough?" Eliza pointed to her canvas tent. "It'll do." "In a rain, maybe. That's snow coming." He hesitated. "I can send a couple of men to help shore your roof before it hits." "No." The word came out sharp as a whip. "I don't take charity." "It's not charity. It's help I didn't ask for," she cut in, "and I can't repay it." "I'll manage." Clayton studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "All right, but take my advice about that spring. You'll thank me come winter." He rode away, his figure soon lost among the trees. Eliza watched him go, unsure whether to feel angry or grateful. She'd built a wall around herself so high that even kindness felt like a threat. Still, as thunder rolled over the mountains, she couldn't keep from glancing toward the northwest. That night, the storm broke. Rain drummed against the canvas, and cold wind pressed through every seam. Eliza curled beneath her blanket, hands resting on her belly, whispering, "We'll be fine. We have to be." But she knew how close she'd come to being crushed by that beam, and how alone she truly was. Pride might keep her standing, but it wouldn't keep her warm. By morning, frost glittered on the ground. When she stepped outside, she found horse tracks near her camp, and beside them, a small oilcloth bundle. Inside were jars of pine tar and a note written in a strong hand. For the timber, no payment expected. CH. She stared at it for a long moment, torn between suspicion and gratitude. Then practicality won. She needed the tar. For days, she worked from dawn till dusk, strengthening her foundation, preparing for the cold. Each morning, she caught a glimpse of a rider at the tree line, never close, never speaking, just watching long enough to see she was still standing. 3 weeks later, when the creek had shrunk to a trickle and she moved her work near the spring he'd mentioned, Eliza admitted that Clayton Hart had been right. The water there ran clear and steady, even after frost. One morning, she was on a ladder, trying to fasten a roof beam when the wood shifted beneath her. Before she could cry out, a steady hand caught the ladder. "Morning, Miss Sullivan," Clayton said. "Thought I'd ride by." "Just passing through, were you?" He smiled a little. "Seems you're building faster than any crew I've ever seen. Mind if I hold that steady for you?" She hesitated, then nodded once. "All right, but just this once." They worked in silence, broken only by the hammer's rhythm and the whisper of wind through pines. When the final nail was driven, Eliza climbed down, brushing sawdust from her sleeves. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Glad to help." He studied her face. "You've done well here. Most folks would have given up." I'm not most folks. I can see that. His tone was warm, almost admiring, and something inside her, something long frozen, stirred. She looked away quickly, unwilling to let him see it. He tipped his hat. Barn raising down south next Saturday. Good people. You might like the company. I didn't come here for company. No, I guess you didn't. He mounted his horse. Still, even the strongest folks need neighbors now and then. When he rode away, the quiet felt heavier than before. Eliza looked around at her half-built cabin, her small patch of cleared land, and the single set of footprints leading away through the frost. She told herself she didn't need him. Didn't need anyone. But when she lay awake that night listening to the wind, she found herself wondering what it might feel like not to be alone, just for a little while. The snow came early that year, drifting down over the pines in soft, whispering sheets that turned Eliza's little clearing into a quiet world of white. Her cabin was finished now, 4 sturdy walls, a stone hearth, and a roof that didn't leak. She'd done it with her own hands, and little advice she hadn't wanted but had needed. Clayton Hart had kept his distance through the worst of the weather, though sometimes she'd find signs of him, a pile of split firewood left neatly by her door, a sack of oats for her mare, tracks in the snow that led up to her porch and then away again. She told herself not to read meaning into them, but deep down, she already had. When the thaw came in March, Eliza's world changed again. The stream by her cabin ran full and fast, and the air smelled of pine sap and earth. Hope, the baby she'd carried west in her belly, was 3 months old, a soft bundle of warmth and life that made the long, lonely winter worth it. Clayton came riding through the pines one morning just as the sun broke over the ridge. He dismounted, holding a small sack and a shy smile. "Morning, Miss Sullivan," he said, tipping his hat. Or, should I say, Mrs. Folks still can't agree which you prefer. "Miss will do," Eliza replied, bouncing the baby gently in her arms. "What brings you out this way?" He held up the sack. "Coffee, the good kind. Thought you might be tired of dried chicory by now." Eliza tried not to smile, but failed. "That's kind of you, Mr. Hart, but I can't repay you." "Don't want payment. I just wanted to make sure you and the little one came through the winter all right." He glanced around the cabin, the smoke curling from the chimney, the tidy wood pile, the line of baby clothes drying near the door. "Looks like you managed fine." "We did." She looked down at Hope. "She's the reason." Clayton's gaze softened. "She looks strong." "She is." He hesitated, then asked quietly, "You planning to stay for good?" "I am," Eliza said. "This land's home now." "Then you'll need help come planting season. I'll be driving fence up this way. My men can lend a hand." "I don't want to owe anyone, Clayton." Quote. He smiled a little at her use of his name. "You don't. Sometimes neighbors just help neighbors. That's all." Their eyes met and held, his steady and sure, hers cautious but warming. Something unspoken passed between them, something that had been building since the first time he'd caught that falling beam. The following week, she saw him often. He brought lumber, helped mend her corral, showed her how to strengthen the chimney before the spring rains. Each time he left, the silence he left behind felt larger, more noticeable. Then came the day of the barn raising. Clayton had invited her again, and this time she went. The Kowalski farm was alive with noise, men lifting timbers, women setting tables, children running through the grass. Eliza stood at the edge, uncertain, until a tall woman with bright eyes and gray-streaked hair approached. "You must be Eliza," the woman said warmly. "I'm Catherine Hart, Clayton's mother." Eliza froze, unsure how to respond, but Catherine's kindness disarmed her. "My son tells me you've done what most men couldn't, built a cabin alone in these mountains. You've earned my respect, dear." "Thank you," Eliza said softly. "Though I had some help." Catherine smiled knowingly. "He has a habit of giving it whether it's wanted or not." The day passed in laughter and work. Eliza helped the women cook, and hope was passed from one set of loving arms to another. For the first time since coming west, Eliza felt something like belonging. When the barn stood complete and the last song faded into dusk, Clayton found her near the wagon. "Did you enjoy yourself?" "Yes," she admitted. "Your mother is kind." "She likes you," he said, his tone gentle but meaningful. "So do I." Eliza looked away, her heart pounding faster than she cared to admit. "You shouldn't." "Maybe not," he said, "but I do." For a long moment, the air between them was filled with everything unsaid: fear, longing, hope. Finally, Eliza spoke. "I've built a life here, Clayton. For myself. For my daughter. I can't risk it for feelings that might." He took a small step closer, his voice quiet but firm. "I'm not asking you to risk it. I'm asking you to let someone stand beside you while you live it." Her throat tightened. "I don't know if I can." "Then I'll wait until you do." The look in his eyes made her believe he meant it. When she returned home that night, the stars burned bright over the mountains. Hope slept soundly in her arms. And for the first time in a long time, Eliza didn't feel entirely alone. She set the baby in her cradle, then stood at the doorway of her cabin, staring at the horizon where Clayton had ridden away. She didn't know what would come next, but part of her, quiet, stubborn, and newly awakened, hoped he'd return. And deep down, she knew he would. Spring melted into summer, turning the Montana Valley green again. Wildflowers scattered across the meadows, and the sound of rushing creeks replaced the long silence of winter. Life had returned to the land, and to Eliza's heart, though she hardly dared admit it. Clayton visited often now. Sometimes he came with supplies, other times with news from town. More often he just came. He would fix a loose hinge, mend a fence, or rock baby. Hope to sleep while Eliza worked in her garden. Their friendship deepened into something neither of them could quite name. When he smiled, her chest tightened. When he left, the silence afterward lingered too long. Still, she kept a careful wall between them, built from pride and fear. She'd built everything in her life with her own two hands, and she didn't know how to share that foundation with anyone, not even him. One golden afternoon, Clayton arrived leading a small cart filled with lumber. "For your barn," he said. "You're going to need one once you get livestock." "I can't pay for that," she replied automatically. "Didn't ask you to. Just thought you might let me lend a hand." She hesitated, then nodded. "Fine, but I help too." They worked side by side for hours, the steady rhythm of hammer and saw filling the air. Clayton showed her how to brace a frame, how to angle the boards against the prevailing wind. Sweat darkened his shirt, and the sunlight caught the streaks of gold in his hair. Eliza tried not to notice, but her heart betrayed her with every stolen glance. When the barn door was finally hung, she leaned against the wall, exhausted but proud. "It's solid," she said. "So are you," Clayton answered. "I've never seen anyone fight for a dream like you do." Eliza looked at him, her throat tight. "I've had to." "I know." There was a long silence. The wind stirred the pines, and the world seemed to shrink until it was just the two of them, standing in the golden light of evening. "I don't know how to do this," she said finally. "Let someone in again." "Then let me show you," he replied softly. "No promises, no conditions, just time." She wanted to look away, but his gaze held her. It wasn't pity she saw there. It was admiration, respect, and something deeper that scared her more than loneliness ever had. Before she could answer, Hope began to cry from inside the cabin. Clayton smiled faintly. "That's my cue." As he turned to go, Eliza caught his arm. "Clayton, wait, quote." He stopped. "Thank you," she said, quietly, "for everything." He nodded once. "You don't have to thank me, Eliza. Just don't push me away." That night, Eliza stood by the window long after the lamp burned low. The mountains glowed silver under the moonlight, and the baby slept peacefully beside her. For the first time, Eliza didn't feel like she was looking out at emptiness. She was looking toward something, someone, worth facing the future for. Weeks passed. The barn was finished, the garden thrived, and the rhythm of life settled into something steady. Then one morning a rider came up the trail. Clayton's foreman, hat in hand, face grim. "Eliza," he said, "Mr. Hart's father took ill. He's been called back to the Double H. Don't know when he'll return." Her heart sank. "Did he say anything before he left?" Quote. The man nodded. "Said to tell you he'll come back soon as he can. Said you'd understand." Eliza managed a small smile. "I do." But the days that followed felt endless. The sound of hammering, the creak of the windmill, even Hope's laughter seemed smaller without him near. She told herself she didn't need him. But when storms rolled over the mountains, she caught herself looking toward the trail, half expecting to see his horse. Summer faded into autumn before Clayton returned. She was chopping wood when she heard the sound of hooves. Turning, she saw him dismounting, thinner, tired, but smiling the moment he saw her. "Eliza," he said, voice rough. "You've been all right?" "I managed," she replied, setting down her axe. "Your father?" "Better," he said, and stubborn as ever. They stood for a moment in silence, neither quite knowing how to bridge the months between them. Then Clayton stepped closer. "I thought about you every day," he said simply. Her breath caught. "You shouldn't say that." "Maybe not. But it's true." Hope came running from the cabin, laughing as she threw herself into his arms. He lifted her easily, his eyes softening. "She's grown," he said. "She doesn't forget people who care about her," Eliza replied quietly. Their eyes met again, and this time neither looked away. "Stay for supper?" she asked at last. "I'd like that." As the sun set behind the mountains, they sat together by the fire, Hope sleeping nearby. They talked about small things. The cattle, the weather, the coming winter. But beneath every word lay the same truth neither dared to speak aloud. When Clayton rose to leave, Eliza followed him to the porch. The air was cold and clear, the stars sharp above the pines. "I meant what I said before," he told her. "I'll stand beside you, whatever comes, if you'll let me." Eliza looked at him for a long moment, then